Hello, I'm Catherine Martinez. Thanks for joining me for this short video showing how to turn your photos into embroidery designs with Stitched Snapshots inspiration software. I'll make the assumption that you know how to use the mouse, double-click, right-click, and the like. You'll see that I'm working with Windows on a PC, not a Mac. Stitched Snapshots is Windows-based, as is all of Dime software. Turning a photo into stitches is fun and fast. Once you have installed Stitched Snapshots, find the icon on your desktop and double-click it. Once opened and a photo created, your screen will look like this. Here we see all of the important parts of the screen labeled. The most important button for us is the Stitched Snapshots tool up here in the top left of the digitizing toolbar. The screen should look familiar to you if you own other inspirational software. Let's begin. In a clean screen, we'll come up here to our Stitched Snapshots button, click on that, and we're brought into the Stitched Snapshots dialog box. This is the main dialog box for us to create all of our stitched snapshots. We'll start by clicking Browse. We are brought into the folder that comes with Stitched Snapshots, giving us images to play with. Please notice the path. It is C:, your hard drive, then into the Dime folder, double-clicking on the Images folder, where you'll find the Stitched Snapshots folder. We'll begin with double-clicking the butterfly. We'll leave all the defaults for now. The remainder of this video will go over in detail all of the options in this dialog box. To see this butterfly in stitches, we're going to come down here to the Show Hide Preview button. Clicking on that allows the software to generate the stitches for this particular photograph. We'll go ahead and click on OK, and we bring it to screen, turning on the 3D to see the stitches themselves. And that's how easy Stitched Snapshots is. If you counted, it was really only 6 clicks. As we compare the two, the photo to the stitches, we need to remember that a photo made of stitches is not the same as the photo itself. The photo will always be clear because it's made up of hundreds and thousands of pixels from an almost infinite number of colors. Transferring those colors into a limited thread palette gives slightly different results. Color is visual perception, which depends heavily on the context or light in which it is presented. Different people see the same colored objects in different ways. If we were to remove the gray bar going across this image and put it on a white background, you would see that it is the exact same color of gray all the way across. Yet when we compare it with darkness and lightness in the back, you see a totally different gray bar. Also, the computer with your graphic card capabilities may interpret colors differently. It's why you may get green in the hair or gray in the chin. But if you like the edgy look in your embroidery, more like art, the digitized photo look is awesome. With our second example, we'll spend a bit more time on the options we have to tweak our photo. Once again, Stitched Snapshots. We'll come to Browse. We're back into our folder holding our photos. Again, take a look at the path. Hard drive, Dime, Images, Stitched Snapshots. Snapshots comes with 14 photos for you to play with, and even though you don't know these women, they are great to use when learning about lighting and contrast and maximum colors. We'll go ahead and double-click the puppy, and this is where I would hear most of you give me an "aww." We'll look first at size. Width and height is given in millimeter. This is the size of the photo, not the finished size of the embroidery. For that, we would need to look down here at the bottom, which you see has nothing at the moment because we have not yet applied options. What's nice about Stitch Snapshots is that we don't need to worry about resolution and the number of pixels in our image. The software has taken the guesswork out of the picture. All right, there's my pun. You know I had to do it at least once, so there it is. The size or resolution of the original photo is represented in the width and height. Yes, we can size it by typing in a new number in one, which will automatically change the size in the other. I'll put in 150, representing my 6-inch hoop, and you see that the height has changed as well. We need to remember an important point. The more stitches the photo embroidery has, the more detailed and lifelike it will be. There are a lot of stitches in an embroidery photo. This will not be a 15-minute stitch out, but the time is worth it as it gives such a realistic stitched photo. We'll go ahead and put our measurement back to 220 as the default image came in. We'll take a look now at maximum colors. You see the default is 16. Maximum color is the same as the maximum number of threads to be used. This doesn't mean Stitched Snapshots has to use that many. You are giving the software permission to use that many. It makes the necessary decisions for that photo depending on that size and other option settings as to how many colors will render the best photo. Let's see the puppy with these default 16 colors. To do so, we must first click the Show Hide Preview button at the bottom. It takes just a moment to render, and there he is. This is another great feature of Stitched Snapshots. We can see the photo turned into stitches right here in this original dialog box. If we aren't happy, we're still where we need to be to change our other options. With these 16 colors, we have a well-defined nose and eye area. We can change this number. If you have a multi-needle machine, a 6, 10, or 15, you may want to set that as the max so that you can have the design finish without additional thread changes. We'll come back to the original photo, and with this little guy, we'll change the maximum colors to 10 using the down arrow until we get there. Nothing happens until we click the Show Hide Preview button. Notice too that we don't get the OK active until we click the Show Hide Preview. With 10 colors, we see that we have lost a bit of definition around his left eye. We must click the Show Hide Preview again to return to editing. Bring maximum colors down to 6 and Show Hide again. We see even less definition in the left eye and also in his nose area. Let's bump those numbers all the way to 20. We certainly could type the number in, however, using the up arrow, 20 is the highest number we can go. We don't see a huge difference once we click on Show Hide, even if our eye could detect those subtle changes. Remember, we're only giving Snapshots the option to use 20 colors. It makes that decision. We could also type in a number, say 35, and it will take that number. However, is that logical? And would we really want to have 35 color changes, some of which might only be 2 stitches? We'll go ahead and put that back to 20. Something else that affects the look of this puppy, the thread palette that you are using. The default is set for Madeira Rayon. Take a look at all of the palettes offered when you use your down arrow. Certainly, you can find your favorite here. But again, the number of threads offered in the palette will affect how many threads are chosen. Look at the Brother embroidery up at the top left. It's the one I used when creating in Perfect Embroidery Pro. However, it only has 65 colors available, which would be extremely limiting for photos. Madeira Rayon has 359. Taking a look over here at the right, Robertson Anton has 456. Here we see the puppy done in 4 different palettes. If we add thread to the choices of those palettes, you see here I have created our puppy with the different thread palettes. Do you see more green in the Brother embroidery? Remember, less thread choices. Both of the Polyneon palettes look similar. The Madeira Rayon gives the best use of brown and rust overall. Let's play with the puppy again. Another fun option is using the mask, which allows us to change the outline or shape of the picture. By default, you see that it is a rectangle. If we use the drop-down arrow for mask, we can make the choice based on words. If you use the ellipse right next to it, you can make the choice based on visual. We'll go ahead and choose the diamond. This shape causes a loss of the muzzle. If we go back into the mask and choose heart, again we lose some of the puppy because his face is angled. However, we can drag the heart around until the image has more of what we want. Notice if I move it towards the side, the heart gets narrower. I can then click and drag the size of the heart to the area on the original picture that I'd like. Let's do a show hide to see it. The mask will crop away all but what is inside of the shape. But sometimes a particular mask just doesn't work with a particular photo. In this case, we'll go in and get the ellipse, and this really works better with the puppy. We can size the rectangle, which will automatically size the ellipse, and then it becomes easier to move the ellipse around the screen to get the portion of the photo we'd like to capture. Let's get a different photo. We'll go back to Browse, and this time we will use the woman with the orchid. The mask that we last used is still there. Let's go into our ellipse and this time choose the heart, and we can see this is a great choice for this photo because most of her face is in the upper 2/3, whereas the puppy's took up almost the entire height and was angled. We'll take a look with our show hide preview. Doesn't this look great? Think of the gifts made from family photos, whether for Valentine's Day, Mother's or Father's Day, for the bride and groom. Truly, the love here is endless. Coming out of show hide, we'll go back into Browse. We'll play with our blonde lady, and right away we see the heart is not perfect for her, but if we play and size the heart, again, if I drag it to the side, I am changing the heart, and then I can click and drag into position so that I get a nice image inside that mask. To aid in using the mask more effectively, or to tidy up the photo, you can edit the original photo in another photo editing software like Paint, Photoshop, or Corel to be just the image. We can get rid of the background. Here's what I mean with a photo of my grandson. You see the original at the top, the whole picture cropped to the bottom left, and then bottom right shows all of the background deleted. Remember, we can always drag the rectangular mask to isolate the portion of the photo we want, but sometimes it helps to modify the original photo. Back into Stitched Snapshots, I'll go ahead into Browse and get a picture of him. Please notice that I've added some of my own photos to this same Stitched Snapshots folder, making it easy for me to access them. I'll go ahead and bring in the cropped picture of him, go back in and choose the rectangle mask. I could even crop a little bit more if I wanted to isolate just his face. I need to first click on Show Hide Preview so we can see him. And he is just so cute. Let's go ahead and bring him to screen by clicking on OK. If we turn on our 3D, we see that he's a bit hot pink, and like any inspiration software, we have the ability to change the colors in the design. If I were to click on number 7, come into my full palette, I can go in and make changes to that color. Clicking on this color called Pale Salmon, I'll go ahead and do an OK, and I have altered that very hot pink to a softer, which I like better. If you wanted to see all of the color affected by that one particular thread choice, we can come over here to our sequence view. I'll first ungroup, And then I could right-click and ask to hide all, and simply bring up that number 7, coming over here into my color index, finding that number 7, and using my eyeball to turn that back on. Here is all the area that was affected when I changed that hot pink color. Usually there is more affected than we think, but it is this blending of colors everywhere that gives it the look of a photo and not just a filled area in regular digitizing. Some of you may have seen the notes that were created by Dory on the support desk. Although it comes up when you click on your program manual, we can go under Help, Manual. She didn't write it as a manual or in manual form. It was her notes she wrote when the software was first being tested, and she used her own puppy, Emmy Lou. There she did what I just showed you with my grandson, cropping the photo and removing the background to use with a mask. We'll come into a clean screen, back into Stitch Snapshots, back into Browse, and once again we'll bring Jamie to screen. We're going to use his picture as we learn about lightness and contrast. His picture was taken on an iPhone, uploaded to Facebook, where I screen captured it on my iPad and sent that photo to my computer. That's a lot of monkeying around with a photo, so it's of a little less quality than the 4 photos of women that are free with Snapshots. A photo may be good with the default settings of lightness at 0 and contrast at 100. Or it may benefit from adjusting either or both. Looking at Jamie as is, with 16 colors, let's take a look in the Show Hide preview and see what this image is going to render. We see that the cheeks and the bridge of his nose are very noticeable. Let's see what happens when we adjust the contrast down to 50. Coming out of the Show Hide, we'll take a look at contrast, and we're going to go all the way down to the end of the bar at 50. Doing another Show Hide, we see everything blends in better, but his eyes don't have as much definition. Leaving the contrast at 50, let's change the lightness all the way to the max of 50. Looking at Show Preview, we see that we lose a little bit of the chubby cheek definition and some across the nose. Coming back out, we'll drag the lightness to 20. Come on back in to the Show Preview, and I think I like that just a bit better. You see how you could continue to play, even bring them to the screen to compare before you commit to stitching one out. Let me open a file I've already made for comparisons of just that, and as we see these at the screen, please also notice over here in my notes area. You see I've written myself notes as to these individual pictures and what some of the settings were. I do this a lot. The way that we do it is we simply click right into that box, and I could add any additional comments. When you save the design, the notes are saved with it. With a clean screen up on our design page, our next option is to play with the style of stitching. Once again into Stitched Snapshots, once again into Browse, and we're going to bring up our little Nemo fish. I'll go ahead and crop it just a little bit so we don't have quite as much green to deal with. We can focus in on the fish. The default style is stippling. Let's go ahead and do a Show Preview. And we see here's our fish with the stippling that we're used to seeing up to this point. We'll come out of Show Hide Preview and change our style to hatching. Do a Show Preview and take a look at this rendering, and we see it does look different. I have a file for us to compare. We'll go ahead and open our blonde lady, turn on 3D, We can see a little bit of difference right here, but if we take our zoom and we zoom in on these two images quite a bit, you're going to see the basic differences between hatching and stippling. On our left is hatching, a series of straight stitches in one given direction in a small area, and then it changes direction in another area. Stippling, on the right, again straight stitches, but they cross over each other randomly and are of different lengths. Very similar to a preschooler scribbling. Hatching is more like the preschooler who is coloring back and forth in one direction, then moves his hand to another place and angle, and continues to color back and forth. It is this ability that allows for a very blended and realistic look to parts of a photo, especially facial features. Other software may digitize a photo as a group of filled stitches, all in the same direction, all of the same stitch length, much like a regular complex fill, with the results not as detailed. This is the real secret and beauty behind stitched snapshots. The software generates these random stitches in the different thread colors and layers them just so to give us a realistic rendition of the photo. We'll go into a clean screen, back into the dialog box for snapshots, back into Browse, and we'll bring up our parrot. The last option for us to play with is Mode. The default mode is Color, which is why I have brought up this magnificent bird. If I do a Show Preview, we'll see all of those colors in thread. We'll come back out and hide the preview. Try our next mode. We'll come down to Gray. And as we do our Show Preview, we'll see that gray on this particular photo is not as dramatic. Go back into Hide, use our drop-down arrow, this time choose Sepia and take a look at it. Sepia uses browns and reddish browns as the pigment mix, very warm tones. It gives us an archival look, but more definition than the gray. Hide that preview, and we'll try our drop-down once again, and we come to the CMYK. When we do a Show Preview and take a look at this CMYK, we see lots of odd colors. The C stands for cyan, M for magenta, Y for yellow, and K is key, which is black, which comes from the idea that the plates are all keyed to each other, aligned with the black plate. As opposed to our RGB, which is red, green, blue, we have primary colors where light is added to make the new colors. And here in the center, you see your cyan, magenta, and yellow. Once back in preview, let's go ahead and come out of that and take a look at what we have left. Edge, Show Preview. Edge seems to define major areas of your photo. Definitely has a bit of an artsy feel to it. Hide that preview. Come back and try our last one, which is Mono. Mono meaning one color. If you take a look here at maximum colors, we're only allowed one, showing that preview. If we take a look at the bird done in all one color, again, we lose so much of the drama of the bird. Let's take a look at this slide that compares all of the different modes from color to gray to sepia to our cyan colors, our edge, and our mono, and we can see the ones that we like best. Our next slide will show us where the stitches have been added, and some of these, as in the gray and the sepia and the mono, really don't do our bird justice. However, let's not write off our edge and our mono. It didn't look good perhaps with our parrot, but take a look at some other designs, the car and the sunflower, that come with your snapshots. Here we see edge applied to both of those, and we get a very cool look. Here we've applied both the edge and the mono to our blonde lady. You can see the results. I even like this mono look with Our Lady. Here we have resolution set to 5, and the one below it, resolution set to 0. And that brings up resolution. We'll turn our mode back to color, come to browse to get a different image. We'll use this sunflower, and I am going to grab a corner to crop just the upper portion of this design. We'll take a look at the preview done in color with the default resolution set to 5. And here we see detail and so forth in our design. Coming back out to hide that preview, we're talking about resolution right here. Let's grab that bar and drag it all the way down to 0, do a show preview to make that comparison, and we can see a number of areas that are missing the detail that they had with a higher resolution. Looking at our slide, comparing the two sunflowers together, on the left the resolution of 5, on the right the resolution of 0, and again you can see the areas. In the middle we've lost detail on some of the petals, and then again in the leaf area. The only thing we have not yet played with is our video capture. We're taking a look at these two buttons right here. If you have a forward-facing camera on your computer screen, you can capture yourself. This button turns the camera on, and this button will then become active, and that will take the photo. And you'll be on the screen to play with all of the other options. Here's my result. Back to a clean screen, I'm going to open a design that I already have created for us. It is our parrot with the hatching. I'll drop him down a little bit so he's not quite in our face. We see our parrot. We'll come over here to 3D and turn it on. Once you bring a design to screen, you have all of the options available to you on the toolbars as well as over in sequence view. We have our ungroup tool. If I select our parrot and come up here to ungroup, we then can come over to our sequence view and expand any one of the colors. We do that by clicking on the plus sign. As you see, I have the blue area highlighted, and this blue area has been digitized as a manual stitch. If we expand to others, we see that they are all digitized as a manual stitch, similar to the manual stitch tool in Perfect Embroidery Pro. If we select one of those areas, you can see the properties that are available to you for that. Because these are manual stitches, we do not have a great number of properties to use. We do have the ability to go under Transform and change size. But remember, you really want to size a photo in the Stitched Snapshots dialog box, and then let the software do its magic with the resolution of the photo. We have some other tools, such as our background tool and our artwork tool, that may not be logical to use right now, but you know how the designers of Inspiration Software love to give us new things in updates. You also have the ability to customize your screen under Tools, General Options. It is here that you can set your defaults to inches or metric. You could change the default thread palette to one of your liking, go into grid and set those spacings as desired, come into view and decide whether or not you want highlighted items shown as a color and whether or not you want your property tabs shown as icons or words. You can set the software up as you like. When you go to stitch out on your machine, these designs have a lot of stitches. You can see right up here at the top in the information bar that this design has over 59,000 stitches. You want to pick your base fabric and stabilizer accordingly. You're not going to want to stitch designs such as this on silk with a single layer of tearaway stabilizer. As much as it might hurt in time, you want to do that test out. If you own PEP, you have the added ability to use stitched snapshots right within Perfect Embroidery Pro. The beauty with that is that you now have all of Perfect Embroidery Pro's tools and capabilities at your disposal. You now own a fabulous software. Think of the gifts that are possible on such a personal level. And artwork. Wow, the potential for your own creative touch is huge. Let's take a look at some of these. Here we see fabric that was scanned, and whether it was simply cropped in a rectangle or cropped without background in a program like Paint, how darling he would be to be the center square of a pillow. If you have created an art quilt, take a picture of it and turn it into stitches. This magnificent art quilt, Eagle Eyes, was created by Marjorie Hedges of Texas. However, make sure you have permission to do so. Here, I have taken stencils and scanned those stencils in. If you've taken a look at this article, I created the designs in Perfect Embroidery Pro, but I might have done it in Snapshots had I known how easy it would be. Pure artwork transformed into stitches. It's beautiful. I might submit something like this to the magazine in the near future. Oh my gosh, that was fun. I love this software. Now, I hope you go create something wonderful in your Stitched Snapshots Inspiration software. Enjoy!